Hello, everyone. A couple of days ago, I went to a Van Gogh exhibit here in Milwaukee, and I was not that familiar with the guy beforehand. I, of course, know about the ear incident, and everyone knows Starry Night and all that kind of stuff. But I did find it pretty fascinating. I'm learning about the guy there at the exhibit, and I didn't realize that, similar to many artists, he did not have the fame or reputation until after he was dead. And there were here we are over a century later, and we have people celebrating his art, which I think was awesome. At least I did think it was awesome until I saw how they were celebrating it. So as here I am, I'm learning all of, they give you a description of what he was going through as he's making his paintings. And I'm trying to understand the man, because art to me is a process where it reveals the artist to the audience. And even though it's been such a long time, I'm still indulging in that aspect. I'm learning about the man through his art and through the stories that they're telling me. And I look around and I see idiots taking selfies against computer-generated backdrops of his paintings. The finale was in this room that was enormous, and a bunch of different rendered images of his art would get broadcasted on the walls and floor. And of course, modern idiots would think that was a prime opportunity to take selfies. And I, of course, was pretty disgusted by this because to me, this is an inversion of what art is really about. And I don't doubt that there were people in that audience that were capable of looking at that exhibit as a means to understand who Van Gogh was. But a majority of them were there to take selfies and blast it on social media to have this appearance of having some kind of relation to someone else's art. And as I've said here in many different videos, I like to look at art as a means to have the artist become known to me through their art. These people are not resonating with the art or the imagery or any of that or the message. They are just using it as a backdrop to get social media likes. And I like I said, I do believe it's possible for the modern mind to be able to understand art, but it seems to be dwindling. And whereas the true principles of art should reveal the artist, now we are having modern audiences using someone else's art to reveal themselves to a different audience by proxy. So it's a really bizarre inversion of artistic principles to me. So as I'm watching this, I'm just if you want to take pictures of the actual art on display, you've been there, and this is a piece of art that has been around for fucking a century, and you wanted to document that you were there in person with it. I understand that, but by putting yourself in the frame and having no frame of reference between you and what that art was when it was conceived, it's fucking ridiculous to me. But then I started to draw parallels to that and what's going on with modern metal. As you see on this channel, it seems like a lot of the human experience that's happening now with modern living it manifests itself in what's happening in the trends in the modern metal scene. I can see that backdrop of what tech metal or whatever it was that established itself in the mid to late 90s and then got held hostage by necrophagists and mutated from then on. I could see that backdrop is something that the modern person is putting behind them so they can take a selfie through their shittily composed music and put it online so that they can have their likes and their comments and all that nonsense. And it's this need for that vicarious involvement of someone else's art, that plagiarization of it. It's what makes me lash out at these modern efforts. And as I said before, wanting to understand the artist through the art, when I look at these people that are creating these records, you can look at them and immediately know everything about them. Whereas before there was a mystique to the artist. For all of the Hollywood shenanigans that Glenn Benton was, when Deicide came to prominence, there was a mystique about who he was, and you would be drawn to the charisma of him as a performer and as an artist. And nowadays, when you see some stretch-eared idiot that's, head to toe in tattoos and putting together a song based strictly on sweep arpeggios, you know exactly who that person is. There's no need to delve any deeper. You understand that they're a coffee shop moron that has armchair politics and has a food service job, a liberal arts degree, and they are not going to contribute anything worthwhile to the metal scene, the death metal scene, the whatever scene they're trying to co-opt. And when I see it happening, is it an early judgment call? Absolutely. But that's the state of modernity. That's the state of what the modern person represents. And being at this exhibit, seeing what's taking place and how someone else's art is being celebrated 100 years later in the most empty, vapid kind of way, I would prefer that it was not celebrated at all and it was just lost to the sands of time. And I'm sure that as metal continues to mutate and the original intent gets further buried, I assume that all that metal that metal used to represent is going to not even resemble itself in the most modern iteration of it. And at this point, I'm glad, because I don't think the modern mentality is capable of understanding and celebrating it. And I think in order to get away from that, we need to take a step back from our own egos, because that vicarious nature of seeing someone else's composition and wanting to use it to express yourself to a different audience, it makes so little sense, and it showcases that narcissism that really plagues the social media addled brain. And we're never going to get away from that as long as our dependence on the internet is there. But I just really think that it comes from such a bankrupt standpoint that it's very hard for me to look at these modern bands and understand that there is a sense of artistry in it. And for people that are going to try to combat that narrative that I'm giving you, they'll always cite the abilities of the player. They'll always cite that, it's so complicated, and it's so difficult, and they spent so much time on their craft, and I get it. Sweep arpeggios are not easy to do, but if that's all you're practicing and that's all you bring to the table, you don't have an artistic statement there. You have a lot of effort. And if you're going to try to compare yourself to an actual artist, just because you cut off your ear doesn't make you Van Gogh. So if you have a lot of effort involved, but you have this empty statement, it's not going to have a resounding effect where a century from now, we're going to be celebrating what you did. Whether or not it's in a superficial manner or actually analyzing the depth behind the statement that was made, it's not going to be remembered. And if you are going to try to dip your toe in any kind of artistic pool, you should do it because you want to be remembered, because you have something you need to say. And until I see modern bands coming forth with something to say, I'm going to continue to point the finger at them as being artistically bankrupt. So that's about all I have to say on that. Thank you for listening.